So far we've seen how to create constant variables, but obviously we have mentioned other types of variables that are not necessarily constant. They will not be declared in the same way. We're going to be using a little bit of a different verbiage, a little bit different wording. So what I'm trying to say here is that if it's not a constant, if it's a variable, and keep in mind the names of the types of variables that we're dealing with. Constant means just that, it always remains the same. It's constant throughout. Variable means that it varies, it changes, it can have a value and then have it changed. So what I mean by that is I can demonstrate this on Replit. If you still have your last program open, make sure that that it's saved, and it should be automatically saved. I'll click on the link to Replit to bring me to the home. I will now create a new one and make sure that I'm dealing with Swift. And I'll call this one more variables. And just sort of to keep a constant with naming, I will not use any spaces. I will say capital M for more and then variables. And create the REPL. Once this pops up, I know that I can add some comments and just say this is part 2 of the variables exercise. Go ahead and put in your name also in a comment. You could use multiple line commenting if you want. I'll put in by my name. Put in a couple of spaces, and to declare a variable as opposed to declaring a constant, that we use the word let, something equals something. Variable, we just need to use the word var for variable. And I'll take some examples here from the actual assignment. You will be creating a short document that creates similar things to what is stated. Number of likes, the number of likes that a photo has received, number of comments, etc. I'll do the first 2 or 3, and then you will have to do the rest of them on your own, including the ones that I demonstrate. So the number of likes. What do I mean by that? Well, I know we're going to declare a variable. Number of likes can change from day to day, so that's definitely a variable. It's not a constant. You're not going to have 2 likes forever. You're going to have multiple, or you're going to have more, or you're going to have less. So that will vary from day to day. Let's declare a variable by saying var for variable. And then say variable, let's call it something that is recognizable. Number of likes, I'll say number, and then capital L for the camel case, number likes. You could also use of likes if you want. I'm just keeping it short. And I'm declaring it to say, for now at least, we'll change it later, but we'll start with a 2. Go to the next line. And I'll see the number of comments. It's also a number. By the way, if we're storing numbers, we only have to give it the value as we're doing it here. It's a number 2 is a number. But what if it were a word? What if it were a name? Then we're dealing with a different kind of variable. In this case, it would be a string. Let me skip down to something that might take a string. Month created, for example. Although some programs will say, well, I say var for variable, and we'll say month is equal to, if the current month were March, I would say maybe the number 3. But what if I wanted to explicitly say March? Then I have to declare a string. That is a series of letters and numbers. It's just going to be a word, basically. Those are usually, most of the time, probably always, stored inside of quotes. So I'll use a double quote and call it MARCH for March and save it as such. I'll put in a couple of spaces there, and then I'll tell it to print parentheses and say, well, let me see the number of likes, and then in the next line, do the same thing, print, and print month. I will click on run, and see what happens. It's running a little slow and nothing happens. So I should say it's running very slow. Okay, so that was just a problem. It was running a little bit slow because it's running on a server somewhere else, but I get the result. First of all, 2 is the number likes, number 2, and then the month is March. If I had said to print the month and it was a number, like the number 3 for March, run that, then I get the results that way. But this is a number value as opposed to a string value. I'll go back to the March and keep it as such. For your exercise, make sure that you determine what kind of a variable you need for the number of likes, which is going to be constantly changing. So you want a variable like the one I use. The number of comments, the same thing as how many comments people have left on a photo. The year that it was created, this is something that's not going to change because it's going to be done only once. So make sure that you use a constant value and you declare it as such. The month created, I just showed you that they created, it's going to be very similar to month, and more likely than not, this is going to be a variable number as opposed to a string. So give it your best shot, and when you're done with your assignment, make sure that you save it. This one is called More Variables. I'll click on my REPLs. Make sure that I go to More Variables just to make sure that this is what I want. This is going to be the whole address bar. Right click and copy, and then click on the name of the assignment, 3.2. Scroll down a bit, see Write Submission, and then here Control V as in Victor to paste. I'll keep the formatting, and this link your instructor will use to check and grade your assignment. Click Submit so that it goes in, and I'll see you in the next video.